When I announced to my family that I was moving to St. Petersburg because of a new employment contract, hell settled in the room. My sister Jean, always so delicate, jumped off the couch as if he had taken a shock, his injected eyes with anger. How dare you think about abandoning us? Who will play my children? Huh? Who will pay the bills? There was no happiness, no pride, only the selfish despair of those who saw their human ATM about to be disconnected. My mother didn't stay behind. In a trembling voice of fury, she accused me of betrayal. You know very well that this family depends on you. How can you turn your back like that? I, who had been carrying the weight of 5 people on his back for 7 years, finally exploded. Enough. Gene never worked a day in his life, and now it's time for her to learn to turn around alone. I deserve to live my own life. It was then that my father came into play, and when he entered, it was always to crush. A man of almost 2 meters, former worker of work, used to solving everything with shouts and violence. With a sudden movement, he threw me to the floor like I was a trash bag. She tastes my resistance for the first time. What did you do for me, huh? I keep this family since I was 21. You are all parasites, but words do not hold it. He tore my cell phone out of his pocket, found the number of my new company ad, with a sadism that only he was capable, called to cancel my future. Gene applauded, radiant, as if he had won in the lottery. This, father, teach this ungrateful. I shut up, but when midnight fell, I took my things and disappeared. What did I do later? Well, let's say they harvested exactly what they planned to. My name is Alexandra, and for 7 years I was the family's ATM, the responsible daughter who abdicated dreams, love, freedom, just to play the lazy lifestyle of my older sister, Jean, and the whims of my parents. While she slept until lunch, she watched novel and complained about her single mother's difficult life. I worked to faint. 2 jobs during college, a brilliant IT career, salaries they evaporated before they even falling into my account, all to pay rent, supermarket, health plan, clothes for her children, my mother's pampering, and my father's vices. They lived in a 3 bedroom apartment, furnished with my sweat, while I squeezed in a cubicle on the periphery. They had dinner outside, bought new clothes, updated cell phones, and me. I ate the same grilled chicken every day, wore the same clothes until they wear, and had not been vacationed for 6 years. My life was an open bank account for them to plunder at ease. Until one day, fate gave me a chance. A call from St. Petersburg, a prestigious company, offering a salary 3 times larger than mine, and, most importantly, a way out, a chance to breathe, save money, perhaps, who knows, have a normal life. For the first time in years, I felt hope, and I made the mistake of sharing this news. The scenario was predictable. Gene painting his nails, the children shouting at the video game, my mother rolling the feed of social networks, my father stuck to TV, everyone living at my expense in a house that I paid, with comforts I provided. When I announced my change, their world collapsed. Not for longing, not for worry, for the fear of losing the golden egg chicken. Gene got up like a fury. You can't do that. Who will pay the bills of my children? My mother called me selfish, ungrateful. My father, with his predator instinct, saw the threat and acted as always, with violence. He not only humiliated me, but he destroyed my opportunity with his own hands. But they didn't have one thing. I had nothing more to lose. That night, while they slept quietly in their beds over and with my money, I disappeared. And what came next? Let's say karma is a cold plate and I served with mastery. Because when you spend years being explored, you learn to return every penny of pain with interest. And believe me, they paid. Expensive. Continued to suck every penny she earned. And the worst, she even paid my cheap whiskey as I pretended to be the patriarch of this family farce. I published. Then it was my mother's turn. His page was a sanctuary of hypocrisy. Photos of perfect Sunday lunch, advice on gratitude, and posts about how God provides. From your phone, I typed with a bitter smile, "Today my husband and I destroyed our daughter's future because we didn't want to lose our source of income. She had paid our bills for years, rent, food, medicine, everything. When she tried to get a better job in another city, we assaulted her and sabotaged her hiring. Now she left, and for the first time in 7 years, we'll have to work. I saved the draft, but I haven't published yet. First, I wanted them to wake up with the fresh news. I went back to the car and called the liquidator of the building, the same one that sold me to the apartment a year ago, thinking I was just another naive tenant. Good dawn, Ivan Petrovich. Acqui is Alexandra, owner of apartment 302. I need to change the locks today and cancel all the hits of current residents. They have until 10 a.m. to remove their belongings. After that, I will call the police for forced removal. I hung up before he could question. Then I'd opened the bank app and canceled all the additional credit cards they used on my behalf. I blocked the joint accounts. I ended the Netflix signatures, the premium delivery, the mobile plans I paid for them. One by one, the privileges were falling like domino pieces. At 6 a.m., when the sun was still barely born, I sent my mother's post. Then I sent prints of all the transfers of recent years to a family group on WhatsApp, the same one they used to charge me money with messages such as sa sha at esker oche no the a sv ote cat luche at te or de ye en yuri in z n. The last message I sent was short and objective. You have 4 hours. Then the police arrive. And yes, lawyers are already involved. Take the opportunity to explain to Jean's 3,000 followers as an independent single mother lived 7 years at the expense of her sister, or as a real man hits her daughters to keep them like slaves. Good luck. I drove to a 24-hour coffee and ordered a cappuccino. While taking the first set, notifications began to explode. Link from Jean, my father, my mother, all ignored. Then came the messages of strangers. I saw your post. You're a heroine. My family did this to me. How did you get out? You have the courage I never had. At 9:57, I received a call from the liquidator. They are leaving now. Jean is crying, shouting that you are ungrateful. Her father threatened to sue, but I showed the property contract. They have no more access. I smiled. Thank you, Ivan Petrovich. Send the lock exchange account to them. I hung up and looked at Moscow's horizon for the last time. In his pocket, the Seversov contract was awaiting my signature. In Petersburg, a rented apartment was already reserved, just mine, and in the bank account, for the first time in years, a balance that would not be drained by parasites. They thought they had broken me, but they only taught me a lesson. When you take everything from someone, that person has nothing more to lose. And that's where the real danger begins. Because I was no longer the obedient daughter. It was no longer their money box. Now I was the nightmare they created themselves. They thought they could continue to use me as a personal ATM. But I was no longer that person who pretended to be. The daughter, a Tunisian, beaten to keep her as her dairy cow. In my mother's profile at BK, I published, I lied for years. I haven't been working for 5, because my daughter, Sasha, pays for everything. All my family explored me financially, and today, when I tried to go to build my life in Petersburg, they physically assaulted me. I stood, watching while my father beat his own daughter because he didn't want to lose his mama. I'm not a mother. I'm a parasite. And then I went to systematic destruction. I called all dealers and canceled the contracts, paying all fines for early termination so that there were no delays. Energy, water, gas, internet, garbage collection, everything would be cut in 24 hours. I entered my MTS account and disabled the 4 family numbers. Until dawn, your phones would become bricks. I accessed insurers' websites and excluded all from the policies. The cars would be without mandatory insurance. Private health plans were canceled. I sent emails to the building administrator and the local city hall, stating that it was no longer responsible for damage or irregularities on the property, as the current occupants would be displaced soon. Then the nuclear option. I prepared an extrajudicial notification of vacancy. As the property was mine, I had every right to expel the illegal occupants, and since none of them had a rent or registration contract, it could require eviction by court. But I decided to give them 60 days to solve their lives. The warning was formal, addressed to Citizen Jean Olgovna, Citizen Oleg Anatolievich, Citizen Lenmila Fyodorovna, and also to the smallest Maria and Timofey. Through this, I notify them of the need to vacate the property located at the address X within 60 days from the receipt of this notification. If not met, I will be required to file a lawsuit to vacate and remove the address registration. I printed 5 copies and left it on the kitchen table, where it would be impossible not to see them. But it was not over yet. I wrote an individual letter for each adult. For Jean. Dear Jean, you are 31 years old, 2 children, and have never worked. For 7 years, I paid your rent, your accounts, your food, your transportation, your health, and all your whims, while you did not contribute anything. When I tried to start my life, you supported the father who beaten me to continue being your money box. Now you have 60 days to get a job with your children, parasite. Your phone will be turned off today. For my father, Daddy. Today you have made a fatal mistake by raising your hand to me. It seems that you forgot that the daughter you beat is the same one that pays your bills for 3 years. You have not worked since 59 because I allowed you to retire at my expense. Today showed me not as a daughter, but as property. He hit me and destroyed my career to keep exploring me. My life. You have 60 days to get a job and a place to live. For my mother, Mom, today your daughter was beaten in front of you, and your reaction went to approve. You chose the breastfeed instead of the safety of your own blood. For 5 years, I paid your accounts while you did not contribute anything but arrogance and judgments. Never thanked you, never recognized my sacrifice, and today supported my aggression. You have 60 days to earn a roommate, a job, and a place to live. Use them wisely. I got tired of being your ATM and your punching bag, Sasha. Finally, I left a ticket in the refrigerator where everyone would see, when they read this, I'll be in Petersburg. Your phones are off. Light will be cut today. You are no longer in my insurance policies, and you have 60 days to get out of my apartment before I go to court. For 7 years, I sacrificed my life to sustain you indifferent. Solve your lives alone. I put the apartment key over the ticket, threw one last look at the place I paid, but where I never felt welcome, and I left for the night. 3 hours later, I was at the station. I called Alina from Severseft and explained that family affairs had been resolved. She'd understood and advanced my start date. When Sapson left the platform, I put the phone in plane mode, but not before seeing notifications. Tsunami starts. Lost calls, messages, social networking alerts. The consequences had begun. Throughout the trip to Petersburg, I felt something I had not experienced for years: peace. No one depended on me. No one demanded my salary. No one called me selfish for wanting to live my own life. For that first time since college, I was free. When I arrived, I turned on the phone again. Hundreds of lost calls. A flood of messages. Gene, Sasha, what the fuck did you do? My phone doesn't work. How am I going to call someone? They cut the light. Maria is afraid. You can't leave us like this. I have kids, Sasha. How could you do this with the kids? Father, go back immediately. I'll find you and drag you back. You'll still regret when I catch you. Mother, Sasha, please call. Let's solve everything. Everyone is asking about those posts at BK. Your sister is crying. Come home. But it was the other messages that made me smile. A known number. I saw your father's post on BK. I always knew he was a liar about honest work. Congratulations on having escaped. Hearing a college friend. Sasha, I saw your sister's page. I can't believe they used you like this. How are you? Misha, colleague. Your family exploded your social networks. Your father called the office looking for you. I said you had gone to Europe. I hope you are in an amazing place. In the following days, as I got my new apartment in Petersburg, of course, spacious, paid with my money, the sense of freedom only grew. The place had no screens, no hands extended asking more. I had no trial looks for daring to want something for me. And for the first time, when I looked out the window to the city that was now mine, I knew I had made the right choice. There was no return. There was no regret. Just me. Just my life. Only the future I chose. While my new apartment in Petersburg, cheaper than my malice make a Moscovita, but infinitely more mine, gained shade, I watched from afar the complete collapse of the life I left behind. The first sign that my plan was working came from Aunt Nina, the neighbor of the next building, which added me to V-contact there is an eternity. She wrote in a private message, Sashinka, honey, I don't know what happened, but there are police at the door of your apartment, and Jean with the kids crying on the street. Are you okay? For a second, a topping of guilt hit me. Masha and Timov were in the middle of that chaos. But then I remembered the responsibility for them was hers, not mine. She was the mother. It arrived the time to act as such instead of waiting for me to play their lives. The posts I made on social networks on their behalf viralized in the neighborhood. Jean's friends on V-Contact were relentless in the comments, exposing years of fake posts. Someone shared her prints bragging about expensive dinners and beauty salons as unemployed, with 2 children. A comment marked me especially. All those times you wrote that single mothers deserve to pamper, in fact was spending the sister's money as she lived in a cubicle. This is disgusting, Jean. Another wrote, I always wondered how you paid those designer bags. Now I know it was financial violence. Your poor sister. The effect exceeded all expectations. People not only commented, they shared, creating an echo that spread throughout the district. The story ended up in B-Contact's local groups, and suddenly everyone knew the truth about the Vasilev. But the real collapse came with what happened next. On the second day, I called Burbank. An employee, Alexandra Olgovna, said in a professional voice, here is a citizen who identifies himself as his father. He is demanding access to his accounts. He was aggressive when we explained the confidentiality policy. He threatened to call the police if we do not release his data. I thanked the competence and asked to reinforce safety. Keyword, power of attorney. All. Of course, Dad was so desperate that he tried to invade my finances, without realizing that I had already predicted this move. Then came the calls to my old job. My former boss, Natalia Petrovna, warned me, Sasha, your family is terrifying our office. Your father demands your address and contacts. When we refused, she started shouting about family problems and threatening the process. Your sister called you, trying to transfer your last salary to her. Desperation grew faster than I imagined. They were not just uncomfortable, they were in full panic, realizing that their entire lifestyle depended on my salary. On the third day, my former colleague Misha began to send me updates as if it were a series. Today, your father appeared in the office, demanding a meeting with the direction to fire you from the new job. He did not understand that we have nothing to do with Petersburg's company. Safety expelled him. Then Jean appeared, crying, "How do I talk to you?" Children asked why we had to leave home. He tried to convince HR to hire her, but had no experience for a resume. And the apex. My mother called the office if she passed as IRS employee, claiming that I had tax debts and needed to talk to me urgently. The secretary suspected at the time that inspector did not even know the basic tax terms. Every attempt to track and forcing me back to the role of dairy cow was both pathetic and revealing. Each desperate step proved that I was right. They only saw me as a source of money. But the real chaos began when they cut the light. Misha sent me a video of V-Contact, Jean making a scandal in the energy company office, shouting that there was a mistake, that the bills were paid by me, that she had 2 children. When the employee explained that the contract holder had canceled the service, she collapsed in tears, offering paying by card on time. The video had thousands of views and hundreds of comments. The most enjoyable, maybe get a job, like normal people. Another video came up, my father screaming with an MTS attendant because the line had been cut. "This account is paid for my daughter," he shouted, while the girl, calm down, explained that the holder had canceled all the numbers. The video ends with him being expelled from local, threatening with lawyers and cases. Humiliation on the networks exceeded the limits of the neighborhood. #financier violence became a trend in local groups after someone shared a Gene confession, turning history into a warning about family exploitation. In the first week in Petersburg, I followed everything with a mixture of fascination and horror, such as watching a slow-motion accident. Terrible, but impossible to look away. My new colleagues noticed my distraction. At a cafe lunch on Vasilevsky Island, my boss, Lena, asked how the adaptation was. I told a brief version. Your reaction was immediate. "Sasha, what you described is not a family obligation. It is financial violence. You have a saying, you don't get a milk out of an empty jar." You gave 7 years of your life, and they responded with aggression. It did the right thing. His words helped me focus on the new beginning instead of the chaos I left behind. I started exploring Petersburg. I signed up for a data architecture course. I took advantage of the work without the constant weight of sustaining 5 people. But the news from Moscow wouldn't stop. On the 5th day, I learned that Gene had been expelled from the hostel where he took refuge after the apartment. He tried to pay with a blocked card, made so much scandal that they called the police. My mother moved to Aunt Margareta's house, who, according to the rumors that Misha passed on to me, was not happy. Lamilla finally knew reality. Time to show her that she is a parasite. My father's situation was the most desperate. He asked for social aid and found that his early retirement totally depended on my salary. No plan B, no savings, no employment perspective. It ended in a hostel on the outskirts, paid month by month, as depressing as it seems. Meanwhile, the apartment deteriorated. A burst pipe flooded the kitchen and the living room. The neighbors flooded the administrator with complaints about the stench and the lack of hygiene. Reading Misha's updates, I felt a mix of satisfaction and a remnant of doubt. They reaped what they planted, but everything could have been different if they had supported me instead of trying to break me. On the 7th day, Misha referred me a post by Anton, ex to Jean. "I see all this drama on the nets. For years I tried to help Masha and Timofey, but Jean swore that her sister took care of everything. Now she never stops calling me, asking for money. Perhaps, if I had let me see my children before, everything would have been different." Even that irresponsible accused her of hypocrisy, and the situation exposed years of toxic relationships in our family. My father's friends, from the building brigade, commented without mercy their outburst posts. Decades of discourses on honest work ended in public shame. Everyone found that the alpha male lived at the expense of his daughter and beaten her to try to leave the house. The real nightmare began on the 10th day. Gina took the children to Anton's mother around Moscow. Masha and Timofey now live with their grandmother, the same woman that Gina once called toxic and now refused to let her even approach her children. At the Center for Social Assistance, a healthy 31-year-old woman with no professional experience received this job options, Kaksa and Pythurashka, or Vikasnyai Tachka. My 62-year-old father was too young to retire, but too old for manual work, especially with his ruined spine. My mother, with her 90 datalographer skills, simply had no value in the market. The eviction process lasted 3 months, and the sentence was predictable. I was the owner, they occupants without right. When they finally left, the apartment was a ruined, scratched walls, broken doors, traces of purposeful flood, the revenge of the powerless. Meanwhile, in Petersburg, I flourished. The work, the Naseverseft, was exactly the challenge I needed. The colleagues welcomed me as one of them, and the salary allowed me not only to live, but to plan the future. An apartment in Petrogradsky overlooking Nevo, data architecture courses, a solid relationship with Ilya, from the sustainable architecture office, a life I didn't even dare to dream while playing five parasites. 2 weeks after the change, a letter from Jean arrived. They were no excuses. They were curses. You destroyed my life. You're slut. By your fault. I'm killing myself in the stinking market, and the children are with that witch of Anton's mother-in-law. The following messages became increasingly aggressive, more incoherent. It was obvious that she had begun to drink. A month later, Anton took over the children's permanent custody, alleging alcoholism and inability of Gina to offer a stable home. My parents kept bombarding me with furious messages, demanding that I come back and fix everything. My father got a job as a watchman and a room in a hostel. My mother was cleaning and lived with an aunt. I hired a cleaning company and a team of reforms to restore the apartment. Then I rented him through a real estate. Extra income has become a pleasant bonus to my salary, enough to open savings accounts in the name of Masha and Timofey. They were not to blame for their mother's mistakes. Every month, deposited an amount. 6 months later, Gina disappeared. The last news was that it had been fired from the market, and left the room rented with debt and, according to rumors, was seen roaming near the train stations. Bottle in hand. Anton formalized the exclusive custody of the children. I helped him with lawyers and financial support. Masha and Timofey deserved a normal childhood, despite their alcoholic mother. 8 months later, I was promoted to senior architect. Ilya and I planned a trip through the Caucasus and Turkey. I even thought in a master's degree at Vishka. Life had adjusted so well that the past looked like a distant nightmare. On holidays, I think of the nephews and sending presents through Anton. About Gina, I avoid remembering. She made her choice as she preferred the hatred and battle with any attempt to rebuild her own life. My parents never forgiven me. To this day they see me as the traitor who destroyed the family. Sometimes they ask me if I was not too cruel. So I remember my father's boots on my ribs, the threats of pulling my teeth, Gina's applause while I was humiliated. For them, I was never a person, just an ATM. When the ATM tried to leave, I gave them exactly the same compassion I received. The best revenge was not their ruin, but my construction. Every morning, I wake up in my apartment overlooking the snow. I prepare coffee bought at Vasilevsky. I plan a day that is just mine. 30 years, a job I love, a man who loves me next door, financial independence. Everything they tried to steal me. My name is Alexandra. I live in Petersburg, and I owe nothing more to anyone.